All right, guys, before we get into this podcast, football's in full swing, and you know what that means. Prize Picks, go download the app right now. Use code Bradley, and if you put in $5, literally your first line at $5, they'll give you $50. So whether you win or lose, draw, doesn't matter. You're getting $50 for free. I guess if you lost, you got $45, whatever, doesn't matter. Code Bradley, download the app right now. Also, right now, Prize Picks just started adding picks during the game. So like if the game is already live, previously, if you didn't already have the pick in, it's gone. But now you could pick during the game. Obviously, there's a cutoff at some point throughout the game when like the pick, depending on whatever pick it is like you can't do it. But for the most part, you can do live picks. So give it a shot. Go to Prize Picks right now. Download the app. Code Bradley. Put in $5 on your first sign up. You get $50 literally for free. Win, lose, or draw. All right, let's get into this podcast.
Man, I haven't done a podcast in a minute. Last one I did was Piers. Did you see that one?
Yeah. We'll go straight into it. Dude, this is actually really cool for me because we've known each other for like 8 years or something.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time. And obviously, I just want to preface this by saying I got a ton of respect for you, and I love what you've done over all the years, obviously. I was a fan, I think, even before I met you. But shit has been crazy lately. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, where did you decide, because you don't have to do seemingly like any of this. You don't really have to make content anymore. I don't think you ever really seeming like you had to. I think obviously you built your personal brand, but you still decide to come and take like real controversial takes. And I'm just curious, when did you decide you were going to do that?
So basically for me, Rafa was the red line. Like I basically, October 7th happened and I think people started looking at Isreal more. And then when they pushed them into refugee camps and they bombed the refugee camps, and this was around about the time, I think it was a Memorial Day or Veterans Day or one of those. I'm an ex-Navy vet, right? And I'd been researching this stuff, looking into Isreal more, and people had been, going both sides of it. Israel's their mother, they're our best ally, and so I just kind of wanted to do some research for myself. And I saw like the USS Liberty. I don't know if you are familiar.
I've seen this. I've looked into some of the stuff. I don't know all the details of it, so I can't really.
So USS Liberty, I'll give you like a quick breakdown of it. Basically, Israel was at war, and they wanted to drag the U.S. into the war with them. So they attacked one of our Navy ships, and they did. I mean, it wasn't just like a regular attack. They were like napalming the decks, blowing up the life rafts. They torpedoed the ship. I mean, they just, went at this ship for like an hour and a half. And we had called in SOS calls. We were supposedly their ally. And their goal was to sink this ship. They had 4 torpedo boats. Like they had multiple gunships, helicopters, jets. And, they wanted to sink the ship and they wanted to blame it on the people they were fighting, false flag attacks. And then we would go and fight the people that, they're at war with. And they did the same thing with the Levant affair. And, I think they did the same exact thing with 9/11. So they've got a history of these false flag attacks. But at the time, I didn't really know all this. Like I just started kind of getting into it. And when I read about the USS Liberty, that one kind of hit home because they put a gag order on these people. Basically, they killed all these, U.S. Navy guys, and like I said, their goal is to blame it on the people they were fighting. And I'm just like, how the f are we allies of the country that's attacked us multiple times, stolen our secrets? As you start to like learn more and more, it's all bad. Like there's no good. They've done nothing for us ever, and we just constantly send them money. And so then I started doing a forensic accounting of the money that we sent them. We sent them, depending on if you want to go with the Newsweek or the Brown University study, we've given them in aid, like between what we've given them, the war on terror, and all the things we've done for them, between 20 and 30 trillion dollars. So it's almost like our entire national deficit is our support of Israel, and they've done nothing for us. And so I started looking at what's going on over there, and it was to me a complete one-sided genocide. This wasn't a war. The people don't have guns. You got a small resistance organization like Hamas, and you're just bombing more than 50% civilian infrastructures. You're cutting off water. You're cutting off electricity, all this stuff. And to me, it's just, it's war crimes and we're funding it. So that was where I not to go too down rabbit hole, but to give you some context of why I kind of like came back on social, because you went on a trip with me. Like you were like in the heart of Ignite, like, all the girls running around, all the, and it's like, and it was real. Like I was more than half the girls on that trip,
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
I was there.
And openly, it was like, and they were all cool with it. Like it was, it was just a different time in my life. I was partying, I was getting high every day. Like that's what I was doing. And then I wrote my book, and then I kind of like stepped back from social media a bit because I just been doing it a long time. I didn't really care. And I didn't need people telling me I was great. I didn't need to brag. Like I was just kind of over it. And really like the last couple of years of Ignite, I was just doing it for the company. And I think the big thing for me was, seeing what was going on there. And I felt like I had this platform. So I felt like I had an obligation to say something because everybody else was scared to say something. Nobody wanted to say something. Yeah. And I think that was another reason too, why I felt it was important to do it, is because nobody else wanted to.
Well, that's the thing I find most interesting about this whole conversation in general is most people in the creator space or just in media in general are somewhat like, it feels taboo to talk about these things. And that alone, and I think because people are afraid of like, whether it be like the repercussions of like brand deals or
100%.
Like, and it to me is that idea in and of itself that people are afraid. And like, I think in some cases, rightfully so, it makes me question like, why would it be such a taboo thing to talk about if it wasn't a problem?
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Like you can talk about Muslims. You can say whatever you want. You can, Bill Maher is calling them terrorists, saying their entire religion. Like you can say whatever you want. It's totally okay. And that's like a quarter of the globe, right? So to me, I look at this and I'm just like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Like, why can you say whatever you want about these people? The moment you say something about, they're just such a protected class. And then I started looking at it like, why are they so protected? And it's like, okay, the Holocaust, that's what everybody points to. That's why they're so protected. And then you start looking at the numbers of the Holocaust and it's bullshit. Like it's bullshit. And they revised the figures. It's not like some crazy conspiracy. They said 4 million people died in Auschwitz, and then they literally revised it and said it was more like 1.1 to 1.5 million. Well, it's like, how can you be that far off? That's like less than half of what you said. It's a quarter of what you said, or or like a third of what you said. And then you start looking at like just the math on this stuff. Like the math doesn't math. Like you cannot cremate that many bodies. You'd be cremating those bodies for hundreds of years. Not to mention like gas chambers are not like an effective, efficient way to kill people. And these are the Germans. These are the guys that have the best tanks, the best fighter jets, the best technology of anybody in the world. And they're going to put a wooden door in a gas chamber. They're going to just think about the logistics of it. If you just want to kill, say 5-6 million people, you're not going to march 100 of them into a shower at a time, gas them, wait for the gas to release, then put all those people in wheelbarrows, wheel them out, dig them out. Like think about the time it would take. Like,
so do you think that none of it happened?
I think that they were not death camps. And when and the Red Cross went in there and they did their assessment. They said 280,000 Jews or 271,000 Jews died in Auschwitz. And it was mostly from typhus and mostly from malnutrition. And you look at the only gas they had in the walls, which that gas stays in the walls forever, was Zygon B. And Zygon B is to kill typhus. That's not like what you use to kill people. And so you start looking at this stuff and you're just like, yeah, obviously Jews died in World War II, but like you're talking about a war where like 80 million people died. And you're also talking about like, the communists, which we sided with, prior to that was the Bolshevik communist, revolution. And they killed like 30 million Christians right, just during that alone. And those are the people we sided with, and that was 84% Jewish. So, the Bolshevik Revolution was 84% Jewish and they mass murdered Christians. And nobody talks about that. Why don't they talk about that genocide? They only talk about 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. And that 6 million figure was used like 256 times in newspapers, New York Times, all these reputable newspapers before World War II even started. It was 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. It was like, and then you look at the Census Bureau and there's more Jews 2 years after World War II than there was before. Right. So like the numbers don't make any sense. And also, look, I'm Armenian. They killed half my people, and Israel, denies that genocide. But yet, if you even question their genocide, quote unquote, in Germany, you'll go to jail. There was a woman that just died in jail recently because she was around during World War II. She saw what happened. She said, they didn't mass murder these Jews. Like I saw it. This didn't happen. They locked her in jail and they said, you can get out of jail if you just acknowledge that this happened. And she refused to do it. She literally died in jail. This is like a 90-year-old woman or whatever. And, you look at like the people that acknowledged this and they were like, they got confessions from these people via torture. They were like crushing their nuts. They're doing all these torture things. And those are the people that confessed to this crime. So, and this started becoming more apparent with what's going on in Israel. Like they said, people were, made into lampshades and soap. And they acknowledged that was all lies. And then you look at what Israel said for October 7th, beheaded babies in ovens. They come up with all this stuff that sounds really horrific. And it was all bullshit. Mass rapes, all the stuff was all bullshit. And so you start seeing it's like these people have such a pattern of lying. And then you look at the media. The media's lied to us, like during COVID. Like how many times we get lied to? I'm just tired of being lied to.
Well, COVID was the thing that originally made me be like, I don't know if I believe anything that the government's ever said about anything.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, because that was really close to me, and it actually affected me, my business, a ton of shit. And a
lot of people.
Yeah. And it was the first thing that made me just really question like what's going on. And the thing that I just really recognized in that, and I'm going to kind of tie it back to what we're talking about currently, but it seems like all these things in one way or another lead back to money. And I guess the question that I have for you is that, do you think that if other people were in charge or in power, it would be a different outcome? Because, the most like common things that people will like point to is like, well, Jewish people are in control of this industry or that industry or whatever it is, right? So all these things are happening because they're in, they're the CEOs or the owners of the pharmaceutical industries, COVID, right? Or they're the CEOs or the owners of Northrop Grumman, these like giant, military industrial complex things that are basically seemingly like we're just funding, a country, right? Ukraine, whatever, we're funding all these billions and billions of dollars, but essentially it's going back to these, American companies or companies that are selling weapons. And the question I have is like, do you think if it wasn't the Jewish people who were, CEOs and owners, that if it was a black guy, a white guy, an Asian guy, someone else random, right? Do you think the outcome would be different? Because I genuinely believe that it's a human thing that we're talking about, like the innate need for more, for power in all regard. Like that's what it seems that like we're up against. And I don't think that ever truly changes. And it might sound kind of like pessimistic.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think humans are self-serving creatures for the most part. And so you ask a very good question. This is something that I've rattled around with a lot of times. Is it just because they have power and power corrupts and people are selfish? And so, when they have these positions, then they do up shit. And it's like, I think that's a part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. I think it's and I'm not saying I guess I would say it's a problem with Judaism. So it's a problem with their religion. When you have a religion that teaches you that you're better than other people, when you have a religion that teaches you that you can steal from other people, that you can lie to other people that aren't Jewish, and you have two sets of rules, then you obviously are going to have, every excuse to be self-serving. You're going to have every excuse to be selfish because look, when you were a little kid, your parents, hopefully, they taught you, good morals. They taught you not to steal from people, whatever. But like, what if they didn't? What if they're like, steal from anybody that's not a Jew, lie to anybody that's not a Jew, do whatever it takes to, win. Like, if you are raised with that and you think that that's okay, look at these bat mitzvahs. They like teach the kids, like you're better than everybody else. Like that is a reoccurring theme in their religion. The problem with that is, you can start dehumanizing people. When you dehumanize people, you can, you can rationalize genocide. You can rationalize stealing. They're stealing land in the West Bank. They're doing all this up. And I think it's a religious problem.
See, so this is where I want to ask you this question. And it gets interesting to me because, okay, say it's not Judaism, right? Say it's Christianity or Catholicism. It's hard for me to fully agree with that point that it's religion based because even in these other religions, people do shady
100%, but the religion doesn't teach them they're better than other people. Christianity wants other people to be Christian. Muslims want other people to be Christian or Muslim. They say, hey, we believe this is the religion of God. We want everybody to follow it. We think this is the right path. They have their principles. They've got their teachings. And obviously, there's going to be flaws in religions, but Judaism doesn't try and convert anybody. They just think they're better. They just think that we are the chosen ones. And basically, like, everybody is here to serve us. And so when you have that mentality, like, look at how they're treating the Palestinians. They're treating them like cattle. And so like, you're going to obviously treat cattle differently than you're going to treat a human. So when your belief system is such that you are better than everybody else and other people are subhuman, then, you know, you're going to have exactly what's going on in Israel.
I see. So going back to what I was saying though earlier about the idea of like power, control, and money, I think it gets to a point that no matter what your religious beliefs are, those people want to continue to have that power, to have that control. And I honestly don't think that, and I don't know everything about Judaism. I don't even know everything about Christianity and Catholicism. I've always kind of, my past, I've always kind of steered away and come back to just the idea of God in general. I've kind of struggled with that my whole life. Yeah. But I think it's, regardless of a religion, I think it's an innate human problem that if someone has, I mean, think about this, right? We all are taught, at least at this point, seemingly that the most important things in our life is like money, power, women, control. And it's almost like a societal thing as a whole, not just.
But where's that coming from though? The media is pushing these things, you know, like, and who's controlling the media? That's my big problem, is when I keep looking at the root of these problems, like transgenderism, right? I don't care if people are gay. You know, every one of my assistants were gay. I would invite gay guys to parties all the time. I didn't give a I've been around gay guys. I'm not homophobic, none of that shit. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But my issue is when you start mutilating children, when you start telling 9-year-olds it's okay to chop off their dick, hide it from their parents, chemically castrate people, irreparably change their lives, and you start pushing this on children that are impressionable. Look, when I was 15, 16, I was a sandwich. I would do everything that I thought was cool. I wanted approval. I didn't know who the fuck I was. Think about all the dumb shit you did when you were 15, right? So
so much.
Yeah, you're not even allowed to get a tattoo. A tattoo can be removed. You chop your dick off, you don't get it back. Like, you can't smoke cigarettes, you can't join the military, you can't make many life-altering decisions, but you can change your entire sex, and it's encouraged. So you've got this like structure because of the media and because of this, you know, Jewish propaganda that, like, you know, it's cool to be gay, it's cool to be trans, it's cool to be this. And look, kids want acceptance. So when you tell them that, hey, if you are trans, you're going to be in a victim category and people are going to be nicer to you, and that's a cool thing to do, and these other people are doing it, and you're going to get more attention, and you're going to be part of a special group, then you're encouraging people to do something that they might not otherwise have done. And look, I don't give a fuck if a kid's born gay, treat them, you know, the same as everybody else. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
My problem is when they're making decisions at an age when their mind isn't formed that they're going to regret for the rest of their life, and it's being pushed on them. And why the drag queens read into children in schools? Like, why the are kids at 9 years old reading about homosexual acts? Like, what the you know, like,
I mean, that's something I never really understood, because previous to even that moment in our history, which is crazy, is that we never even talked to kids, heterosexual or gay, about any of that stuff regardless. And all of a sudden it was like, now we have to, but I think it also draws back to money, because at that same point, like, I'm not denying the fact that obviously kids want acceptance and kids want to feel like, oh, I'm good. And, you know, if I'm part of, like, cause that kid's getting attention because the teacher is having this conversation about whatever, oh, I want to be a part of this conversation, I want to be good. I get it. But it's weird because there is that point that draws back to money, as far as like the doctors or the people would get this like gender affirming care, and then it's like an insurance company bid there. And it's like, it all comes back to like, why is it being pushed in some way?
Well, I mean, the first transgender clinic was opened by Magnus Hirschfeld. You know, that was a Jewish gay doctor in Germany, 1919. First transgender surgery.
1919?
Yeah, that was the first transgender clinic, first transgender surgery. So this came from Jewish people. In their Talmud, there's 8 different genders. There's not 8 genders in the Christian, not 8 genders in the Quran, right? So this is a Jewish thing. And here's what happens, is the Jewish media pushes the left their talking points. They don't one day just like all say the exact same thing. They're given these talking points. They're given these talking points by the media. And they're given these crazy talking points. And now everybody looks at it like, oh, the left is just crazy. It's the crazy Democrats. But where is this message coming from? And that's what people don't see, is they don't see that these messages are coming from the Jewish media, the Jewish community, and now it's a left versus the right, and the right looks at it like, oh, the problem is the left. The problem is these Democrats. And the left looks at it like, oh, the problem is white supremacy, because that's what CNN says. And the problem is Muslims. And so you get distracted from who's actually causing the real problems, and that is the Jewish religion and Jewish supremacy. That is where the problems are coming from, but it's distracted because it's like, oh, it's just the leftists, and this person's not Jewish, and he says that, so it's not a Jewish thing. You know what I mean? It gets confused, but when you look at the root of where this is coming from, it is coming from their religion, it is coming from their media, it is coming from, BlackRock is what pushed DEI. BlackRock's all Jewish. All the top execs are all Jewish. They want diversity so bad. Why don't they have diversity? I don't see any black, women, black Jewish women, black guys. I don't see black guys wedding Jewish women. Like, you don't see the stuff that they push. Like in Israel, there's no, open borders. There's no mixing. There's no, let's, bring in the black Christian guy. No, there's none of that. You would get ostracized. They keep their people all Jewish. And yet so it's like, rules for me and not for thee, right? Or, it's just like, it's very different. So like what they're telling people, what they're pushing is not what they're doing in their own country. Like porn is illegal in Israel, but yet all the porn sites are all owned by Jewish people. OnlyFans, Pornhub, all that stuff, all Jewish owned. So it's like, you look at who owns it, you look at who's pushing it, and then you look at if they do it in their own country, and it's completely fucking opposite.
So you think if other people own those industries and own those businesses, that it would just be different?
Well, no, I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying that like they do things for themselves that are different from what they push on other people. Like they push DEI, right? But not for themselves, right? They push open borders, but not for Israel. They push gender mix, or race mixing, but not for them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're a hypocrite, I have issue with it. Look, if they just said, all these things are what we believe and we do them, if they practice what they preach, that would be one thing, but they don't. And that's where I have issue. I have issue with the hypocrisy. I have issue with what they're pushing on us versus what they're doing themselves. And they're two very different things.
Yeah. So you had this conversation with, I just seen a clip. You had this conversation with Piers. Did you have this whole conversation with him? Because I didn't watch the whole entire interview.
No, he cut it off pretty quick. So, I mean, look, I my position is very controversial. I mean, because these people have so much power. And when you say things like this, they ruin you. And I actually thought, like, when I took this position, I was like, but this is the right thing to do. And that's where I was at in my life. Is like, I just want to do the right thing. I'd been given more than, any person probably ever deserves. Like, I got everything I ever wanted. Like, I fucked all the hot girls. I, had every car, got my own plane, got literally everything that I ever wanted beyond, I got. So I just got to a point where the pleasure seeking didn't really matter that much to me. Like, I didn't get a lot of attention as a kid, and then I become the most famous guy in the world without a talent. You know what I mean? Like, I got everything in such excess that, but I realized that, like, those things weren't really what made me happy.
Yeah.
Like, I was happier hanging with my boys, like doing that I like to do. And so I don't know, man. I just felt like this was a test. It was like, the real test in life is when you feel like this is the right thing to do, and it's tough. Like, it's easy to do the right thing when it's convenient.
Yeah.
Like, it's real easy to oh, the hot chick wants to fuck me, I'm gonna go bang her. There's a big brick of cash on the table and nobody cares if I grab it, I'm gonna grab it. But it's like, when you see somebody starving and it's your last meal, and now you got to give your food to this guy, or you might not eat to do this. That's when the real test comes. When you have to make a big sacrifice to do what you believe in. That's when it's actually a test. Like, you got hundreds of millions of dollars, you hand bums $100. It's like, it's cool that you're doing that, but that's not any big sacrifice. It's not going to change your life.
Yeah.
So that, like, I think, like I said, the test comes when you feel like this is the right thing to do, and it's very inconvenient to do it.
Have you ever had any other moments in your life where you felt this way?
I mean, it's kind of like a bully thing. Like, if you see a bully, picking on somebody, it's a lot easier to just like keep walking and not get involved, and that's kind of what I felt like with this. And I
guess the one thing that when I I watch the content or I see the clips, I don't know if you ever said this specifically or not, because I see the clips and he's asking you like, well, what do you think Jewish people think about what you're saying? And you're pretty much like, well, I don't care because these things happen, etc. It does kind of suck though, because do you think all Jewish people are
absolutely not? No. Yeah. And you have to understand, like, I came from a place where, like, I had more Jewish friends than non-Jewish friends because I'm a rich guy, I hang out with rich guys. Rich guys happen to be Jewish, you know what I mean? Like, so this whole concept was so crazy. I didn't even consider it. I remember I brought a guy to Kanye, you know, a Jewish friend of mine, to meet Kanye because, you know, after he'd popped off, he lost his sneaker deal or whatever. And I was like, oh, well, you know, like, let's do a sneaker deal. Like, I got a big audience. Like, you know, people like your shit. Like, you know, we can make a lot of money. I think it's good. Like, you know, it'd be a good fuck you to Adidas. And I brought this Jewish. I didn't really think there was a possibility that he didn't like Jewish people. Like, that didn't, you know, like even enter the radar. And I'm, you know, bring this guy, and he had, like, you know, and Kanye made some comments, and my friend at the end was like, man, like, he really doesn't like Jewish people. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess not. It's really weird. You know what I mean? Like, it was like such a crazy thing. So I went from there to being like, these people are causing 90% of the world's problems, and they're less than 1/5 of a percent of the population. What the f is going on? You know, and obviously this is uncomfortable. Like, I had a lot of Jewish friends. Like, I'm, you know, I like money. You know, I don't like getting over. And the moment I started taking the stance, you know, I got death threats. I got, you know, I got blackmail. I got this. I got that. You know, there's a lot of. But that just made me more convinced that I was doing the right thing. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt during COVID. Obviously, a lot. I don't want to say less important, but it just, the whole thing just seems to, I mean, in lack of better words, it sucks because it's just like, I keep going back to the idea that if it was another group of people, would it not just end up being the same? I really.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And like I said, I've thought about that. But I truly think that it is a religious problem of supremacy. Supremacy is not good. Like, you know, and I said this on Piers, and I was like, you know, I don't believe in white supremacy. I don't believe in Jewish supremacy. It's like, you sound like a Nazi. And I'm like, well, I was raised that the whole premise of being a Nazi was white supremacy. I don't think that's true now, but like, it's just funny that he said that right after I said, I don't believe in supremacy. And yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, man. I think, like, there's no other religion that teaches you that you're just better than everybody else, and it's okay to fuck over anybody that's not part of your religion. Like, I think their religion is like satanic. Like, and if you look at what they actually tell you in there, like things that they teach in the Talmud are literally like completely fucked up. Like, it is okay to have sex with a 3-year-old because it's like poking a finger in the eye, and the eye will water, but it's fine. It's just like the hymen will be restored and it doesn't count.
Did you literally? Because I've not looked at this kind of.
No, word for word translation. Like, I've got full like breakdowns. I'm not like talking out of my, this is not some like internet meme. I've seen like the exact text and then the exact translation. I've done the translations on, you know, AI, on translators, and all this stuff. Like, I've fact checked this 100%. And this is like absolutely, it's so up that you wouldn't believe it unless you actually saw it. They believe that Jesus is burning in hell and human, like Virgin Mary's a whore. Like, there's like atrocious shit in there. And, you know, nobody knew about it. Like, it literally says in the Talmud, like, if a Gentile reads this, you should kill him. And that's because they don't want people to know what the fuck it said. And until very recently, it wasn't really translated, and nobody knew, and nobody really talked about it. But now that it's been translated, it's like starting to be uncovered. And it's like, wow, there was a guy that did a thread, and he posted like 20 or 21 of the most fucked up things in the Talmud, and then real world examples of how these are being implemented today, you know, and like, news
You're
article.
talking about Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that was really eye-opening. I was like, wow, like, I thought this was bad, but it's actually even worse than I thought. And that's what you find when you start like going down this rabbit hole, is like, damn, it's even worse than I thought. It's even worse than I thought.
Do you think it changes?
In what way?
Do you think because that's what I keep going back to it, but do you think there's an actual shift where it's like, okay, let's not take it to these extents? Because, you know, like the wars, all these little proxy wars, all the things that America's involved in as a whole is like, it seems to be just about dollars. And
Yeah,
I don't think
I mean,
that ever really changes.
Well, I think they have so much power now that they got arrogant. Like, if they were smart, they would have just, you know, when they saw how much negative pushback there was, you know, with this, you know, genocide they're committing, they would have just stopped and been like, okay, you know, this is enough. This is an appropriate response. But they didn't. They just like kept going, and they kept forcing our U.S. politicians to fund this and to support this and to fund it and to support it. And I think that's what really opened people's eyes. Look, like I said, when I started this, I didn't think it was winnable. Like, I really didn't think it was winnable.
In what sense winnable? Like
I didn't think that people could wake up. Like, I didn't think people could figure this out. Like, I didn't think there was anything you could do about it. I thought they had too much power. I didn't think it was something that could be fixed. And then when I did the Piers interview and I saw the comments, and they were like literally 100% saying like, he's right, I was like, holy shit, like, people actually fucking know they just can't say it. And this was on like his channel. This wasn't like some echo chamber on Twitter. This was like his channel. And I was just like everybody knows and nobody wants to say it. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, like I think this is winnable, because the uninformed majority will always lose to the informed minority. And right now they're the informed minority. Like if you have a small group and they're all working together, they're going to beat the uncoordinated big group. And right now through the media, you look at what they've done is they have like pitted everybody against each other. It's black against white. It's Democrat against Republican. Right. It's you know what I mean? It's man against women. It's attack on masculinity. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's fighting with each other, and it's a lot easier to rule people when they're at odds. And so I think this is like the one unifying issue that actually could, you know, bring people together. Be like, man, like the people that are us over is a small group.
Do you, and I ask you, this is a little bit, this is not an attack at you at all, but is there any part of you that did it because you knew that it would get people behind you?
No, dude, when I did this like a year ago, and please ask any question you want. Yeah. Don't worry about offending me, dude. We've known each other for a long time. Yeah. I know you're not trying to do clickbait, but I don't care. Dude, when I started this like a year ago, this was like a super unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Like the tide has turned a lot. And I truly believe that I had some impact on that. But I'm telling you, like a year ago, being anti-Israel was like nobody even, I mean, obviously like there was, you know, people that were protesting or whatever, but like no like successful people other than Kanye, and you saw what happened to him. Like nobody said anything. And if they did, they got destroyed. I thought this was going to be like the end of me. I really did.
You just didn't care?
Just felt like it was the right thing, man. Like I don't know. Yeah, I kind of just, I just said, it, you know, like I'm just, because there was like months before that when I wanted to say something, but I was scared to say it.
Yeah.
Because my brother's like, they're going to kill you. Like, you know, all these people are like, you know, they're going to kill you. They're going to throw you in jail. There's going to be some smear campaign. Like, look at what they did. You know, Tate was, you know, a little vocal about it. You know what I mean? Like anybody that's kind of like against their narrative gets fucked up.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, no, I thought it was going to be super unpopular to start this. I thought this was going to be like my absolute demise. And it still might be, but like, it's very different now than where it was a year ago. I was shocked when I read Piers' comments, like completely shocked. Because Twitter is like one thing, you know, you get put in there with other people that, you know, think similar stuff. The algorithm
is like the same.
Exactly. Yeah. So it can be an echo chamber. So you can get like a little jaded there, but this was YouTube on his channel. You know, these are his people.
Yeah.
I didn't shout it out. So it wasn't my people.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think you're getting more invites to those types of interviews?
No. Well, I mean, I've always been able to do stuff, you know, like everybody's kind of like open the door, like, cause if you're not very well known and you say this stuff, they get mad at the platform for giving you a voice. But like, if you're well known, then it's great. You know, any podcaster can have Kanye on and they're not gonna be like, oh, why did you have Kanye on? You know, they're just gonna get mad at Kanye for what he says. So if you get big enough, then like you're the scapegoat. So they can bring you on, they can get the benefit of the views and you get all the negative for, you know, what you say. But yeah.
That wasn't my plan, by the way.
No. Dude, I know we've been planning on doing this for years.
For a while. I was like, I really want to have this conversation. It just happened to be like, this was the moment that we were able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides this stuff, in your life right now, what is the most important thing to you?
Well, I would say this is top of the list. You know, after the book, I think that was like a 2-year therapy session. Like you look at all the things that made you happy, all the things that you're you know ashamed of, all the things that you did. Like just look, when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about your workout, you know, I'm like, oh, what am I going to have for breakfast? You know, should I take my D-ball now or should I take it, you know, before the gym? Yeah. Like, you know, you've like all these things that you think about, like,
we're going to get into that too. We're going to get into
that. Yeah. Like, who am I going to later? You know, like, it's just, these are like the things that most people think about when they wake up is like, what do I want to do later on? You know, should I get high now? Should I wait? Like, you know, just, you don't think about like what you did when you're 14, you know what I mean? Like, so when I had to write that book, I looked at like just all the stuff, you know, things that you're not proud of, things that you are proud of, things that made you happy, things that you thought were going to make you happy that didn't. And I just came to a place where I was like, man, I'm going to spend more time with my friends. I'm going to do more that I like to do. I'm going to focus a little bit more business. Like I'm not going to go down the hedonistic pleasure seeking roads anymore. Like I'm going to try and like cut. And it wasn't just like a complete cut of all that stuff. It was like a slow, like weaning off. But I had a bad sex addiction. like.
Is that what you're most not proud of?
No, because that came from a place of insecurity too. You know, like I didn't get laid a lot in high school, and when I was in the military, I didn't get a lot of pussy, and I was, look, I was like finally popular in my senior year in high school, and I lasted like 2 days, and I was in jail. So like I was never really like I never got my like moment, and I think when you go through a, kind of like a transitive time in your life, or a time when it's impressionable, whatever, and you feel like you have a lack of something, I think you carry that for a while. And I think when I was in high school and junior high and whatever, I had a perceived lack that like women were not attracted to me, or that, that I couldn't get the girl that I wanted, or I didn't have as many options, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a lot of attention. My dad didn't really give me a lot, so the things that I wanted, I then went and like achieved in massive excess later in life. And only in doing that did I realize, like, these aren't really, I mean, they were fun. Don't get me wrong. Like it was fun to hot girls. It was fun to, become famous and, have all that happen. But it wasn't like long-term. It was like fleeting, it's like, pleasure is kind of like a immediate spike. It's kind of like doing coke. Like you're going to feel good, or, it's going to hit you, but then there's going to be that come down. Whereas, when you help people out and you do things that you believe in, and, you get happiness from a good place, good relationships, hanging out with your buddies, doing things you like to do, that doesn't have the crash and it can last longer. So I just decided that I was going to focus more on that.
What would you say was your biggest insecurity when you were younger?
Probably that girls didn't like me, or that I wasn't super popular, or I wasn't strong enough.
It's funny how then it became like the thing that you were known for.
Well, but I think that's, but it's just funny, man. And I've thought about that a lot, like Cowboy Cerrone, like he was scared before every one of his fights, even up until the end. He was always like one of the most scared, but that motherfucker conquered his fears. Like, because he was scared, he specifically like ran towards the fire, and like he would force himself to do things. And I found like not to his extent, I didn't go get in a cage and fight every, in the world, but like, I would force myself to do things that I didn't want to do, and I would force myself to face fears. And I think there's people that become great at things that they were terrible at, because they really look, to beat 8 billion people, or to be one of the best in the world at anything, like you have to be almost like autistically ADD dedicated to that thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like a
little crazy too.
Yeah. Right. Like you just there has to be some insecurity driving that, because otherwise you're going to focus on other. You're going to be, less one-dimensional. But I think you look at all like the real villain stories, the hero stories, or whatever, and it's like a lot of it was like driven by like some traumatic moment that. Yeah.
I mean, like my life, like growing up without a father, like the need for acceptance or being good enough was the thing that drove me my whole life.
Yeah.
But then it affected so many other aspects of my life, like having this solid relationship and like being able to keep a good relationship, because it's something I've always kind of wanted. I think because I didn't really see that, like it was something that, obviously my mom lost the love of her life and she remarried, but I always kind of struggled with like wanting to recreate what I didn't have. And it was weird though, because I still haven't done that to this point, right? Like I don't have a wife, I don't have a kid, which kind of is sad to me in a lot of ways, but I guess through my entire like young adulthood, it was me trying to prove to myself that I was good enough in like more the physical way, right? Yeah. As we could see. And it's weird how that insecurity though, if you don't give yourself time to like develop the other aspects of your life, like good interpersonal relationships, friendships, like loving relationships, it's like you can't create that. Like, I guess I'm curious for you, because you obviously don't have kids, you're not married. Was that something you ever wanted?
Well, I got to talk about those differently or separately, because I think the kid thing is one thing that I may or may not regret. The marriage thing, though, I feel like marriage is, I have yet to hear like a strong argument for marriage, unless it's like one of those things where like it's because of the kid and the woman like really, really wants it. But I think a lot of people get married or because society tells you to do that.
I think you're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just seems like such a trap, man. Like it seems like anytime you're like forced to be with somebody or you can't leave on your own accord, I think it hurts the relationship. So are there good marriages? Like, yeah, of course there are. But I think that getting married actually hurts your chances of like keeping a good relationship in the long run. So I'm not a big fan of marriage. I do believe in monogamy, and I think that, having kids would be great, but I think the first thing is, finding the right partner, because saddle with them for at least 18 years, when you have a kid, it's kind of a big decision. So I think it's something people rush into. And I also think it's something that you should do when you're ready for it. I think people have kids too soon. And I think if you haven't done all the things that you want to do, you won't be as good of a dad. You won't be able to teach your son as much. You'll be more distracted. If I had a kid now, that would be my sole focus. I've done everything that I want to do, and now I get to relive my life through him. And
is that something you want to do?
Not particularly, just because I feel like my life is so unstable right now. I feel like I get sniped by a Mossad agent tomorrow, and there's a lot of crazy.
Is that a real fear?
I think it's a real possibility. I'm not afraid of it. This wasn't just something I went off half cocked and did. I came to terms with the fact that this might be my complete downfall, and that was a risk I was willing to take.
Yeah.
But I think it's a real thing. You look at all the people that have gone against Israel, all the people that are in positions of power that questioned it: Shah of Iran, Saddam Hussein, Nixon, JFK, Gaddafi, literally killed all of them. You know what I mean? Almost all of them, or they completely ruined them, or removed them from power. It was not a small thing. Malcolm X is talking out about Israel Jews. Michael Jackson was. You look at the fate of all these people, and it's it has to be a real concern. And they're willing to kill people. They're killing tens of thousands of children. And doing it without remorse too. They're running around mocking these people that they're killing. They're putting on the women's clothes that they killed. They're posing over a baby that died from starvation with a donut and smiling. It's really sadistic. And I wouldn't say that that's just a Jewish thing, because I think what we did during Iraq and the Gulf War was really up. We killed 500,000 civilians over there, and I saw the military pact mentality, because you almost have to dehumanize the people that you're fighting against in order to mentally rationalize that. And I think that's why a lot of these people get PTSD. You see them talking about that. I think Rob O'Neill talked about that. He was the guy that killed, Osama bin Laden.
Right.
He talked about killing a guy one time, and he's like, after I killed this guy, I thought, what if I knew this guy outside this? Would we like each other? Would we go have a cup of coffee? This guy was literally the only reason I killed him, and the only reason he tried to kill me, is because I kicked the door in of his home, and I went into it with a gun. What would I do if somebody did that to me? And you start putting yourself in the position, and if you don't dehumanize those people that you're killing, then it's really hard to process that, because it's not like we're meeting in a battlefield and fighting it out. No, we're showing up at their home. Yeah. They have kids there. We're bombing their relatives, or you know what I mean? And I don't think Americans really think about it like that, because nobody's ever come here to with us, and they don't think about Palestine is kind of like if Mexico were to come in and invade Texas, and then we were to create a resistance organization to try and get our state back. Those people would be our heroes. They wouldn't be terrorists. They would be taking back our own land. And that's what Hamas is trying to do in Palestine. They're trying to take back their own land. They're fighting back, to get out of apartheid. They're fighting back because their brothers and sisters have been killed, and they're cutting off water, and they're cutting off electricity, and they're starving these people and committing war crimes. There's so many examples. And, just to talk about some U.S. ones, there was a U.S. citizen that was over there protesting. They're literally stealing people's homes in the West Bank. And this is completely on the other side where Hamas is nothing to do with Hamas. This is absolutely unequivocal war crimes. They're not allowed to steal land. They're bulldozing people's houses. They're setting their trees on fire. They're doing. There was a U.S. protester, this woman that was over there, and she's like, no, you're not going to destroy this family's home just so that you can steal their land. And she stood there, and the Israeli guy laughed, drove over her in a bulldozer and killed her. She was screaming as he's bulldozers go pretty slow, so it wasn't a quick death, Right. This is not some conspiracy theory. You can Google this, whatever. Hind Rajab, this is a 6-year-old girl. She's in a car with her parents and her 9-year-old sister, and their parents aren't terrorists. They're a husband and a wife and 2 little girls. And this tank starts open firing on them, and the sister, the 9-year-old, calls up, and they're they're shooting, my parents are dead. She's crying. The little sister's crying. She's please send help. They send out 2 paramedics. The tank shoots the paramedics, literally kills the paramedics trying to save them, then shoots the 9-year-old. Then the 6-year-old gets on the phone. She's I'm the only one, you know, in the car, everybody's dead. Like, please help me, please help me, please help me. She's on the phone for like, you know, 20 minutes. And then they finally kill her too. And this is a 6-year-old girl. They shot 370 rounds into this civilian car from a tank. And we're like, you know, and when we demanded that they look into this, they're like, oh, you know, we investigated and we ruled that there was no fault. Like, they're investigating themselves. So it's like, you look at all these things they're doing. Just recently, there was a U.S. citizen that was over there protesting, and an Israeli sniper shot her in the head. She was completely unarmed. And Randy Fine, you know, senator or congressman or whatever in the state of Florida, like, tweeted out, like, you know, like kill them, you know what I mean? Like, throw rocks, you know, like, you know, around, find out, you know, like, basically like celebrating the death of a U.S. citizen by some Israeli sniper because he's a Jew, and he's Jew first, America last. And that's how all these Jews are. That's the problem, is they have more allegiance to Israel than they do America. Every single one of them. And they're all dual citizens of Israel and America. And they're like representing us in Congress. They're in our government, and they're putting their country ahead of our own country. And that's treason. And that's where we're at.
Fuck.
You know, I mean, dude, I'm just telling you, like, I'm not Muslim. Like, I have no reason, you know, I have no like hidden agenda here. Like, these are just the facts that I'm uncovering. And when you find this shit out, like, you can draw no other conclusion other than like America's occupied. Our country is being controlled by Israel to our own detriment. And it's, you know, it's a fucked up situation. If we don't do something about it, I think it's going to be the undoing of our country and possibly the world. I mean, they're trying to drag us into World War III. We're in a really fucked up position right now. And I won't keep going down this tangent, but Israel's in a spot right now where if Netanyahu stops the war, he goes to jail. So we've got this genocidal maniac that absolutely has to continue this genocide. And our country is just going to go along with it no matter what. I mean, Trump is going to back him. Biden backed him. And eventually, you know, if he keeps invading Lebanon with Iran, like, eventually this is going to lead to World War III. I mean, Russia's supplying Iran with weapons. You know what I mean? Like, this is escalating. It's only going to go in one direction. Like, it's not just going to be left unchecked forever. Like, if people have, like, you know, thresholds where it's just like, okay, mother, like, enough is enough. Yeah. I reached it and I'm not even over there.
Yeah.
I reached it in my bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, when they bombed Rafah, that was my threshold. It's like, you know what? I don't even give a fuck. Like, if they kill me, they kill me, but I'm going to say something about this. So if I got there as an American citizen with absolutely no dog in this fight whatsoever, like, Iran's going to get there. Russia's going to get, like, people are just going to be tired of this shit.
Yeah.
You know, eventually, like, you have to.
Well, recently, I think China, like the Xi, I guess, came out and said that America is like the biggest warmonger.
I mean, that's unequivocal. That's not even, I mean, like, yeah. if you look at like the past, like, whatever, 50, 70 years, like, we've been in more wars and conflicts than like almost the entire rest of the world put together. Like,
but that, and that's the thing I keep talking about, is like, it's built into money. It's built into the economy.
Exactly. It's money. And it's also like almost every single person we've gone to war with just happens to be a enemy of Israel. Every time. Iraq, Afghanistan, you know, it's like all these places, all of it benefits Israel.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, even in my head, though, I take it back to like before America was founded, right? A bunch of people from Europe came in with like, we're taking this. We have more guns. We have more firepower. It's like.
Now, that's a very legitimate point. That is a very legitimate point. What we did to the Indians was definitely fucked up. Yeah. And so that is a one good rebut to the whole thing of like, oh, well, you know, we took over this land or whatever, but like.
No, and just to be, let me finish, because I'm not trying to rebut it and say like it makes it okay.
No, but that's like the one legitimate argument as to like, you know, that Israel should even exist, is like, okay, well, look at what we did with America, which I agree. What we did with America was fucked up. I think what Israel did was way more fucked up. And if you look at like the interviews of these people, like what happened during Nakba, and like the fact that they like put these people in cages, they like raped, you know, underage girls, they just like shot you. I mean, there's this one legitimate account of this guy who's like, the man next to me, they put a gun to his head and they say, if you don't throw your baby in that bakery oven, we're going to kill you. The guy wouldn't do it. They hit him in the head, threw his baby in the oven, made him watch the baby burn alive, and then threw him in the oven after they'd watched. So all the things that they've accused the Palestinians of, these motherfuckers have all done themselves. Like, that's how they come up with this. They accuse everybody else of doing the things that they do. That's what's crazy. And when you see the parallels of World War II, they did the same thing there. It's just like, you know, like denying the genocide is the worst possible thing in the world, but yet they deny the Armenian genocide. I'm Armenian. They killed half my people in the Armenian genocide. Like half my people died, and Israel denies it because they wanted to do business with Turkey and they wanted to take over banking. So, and then they lobbied the US to deny the genocide, which is like, whatever. They want to deny the genocide. I'm not going to whine about it. But by the same token, you can't then whine when other people deny your supposed genocide. Like you can question anything in history other than that. And you literally get thrown in jail for it. That should make you want to question it more than anything.
I hear you. I guess my biggest thing is just, like I said, taking it back to the way America was founded is, and even prior to that, right? Like even, because I try to have these conversations, I try to just understand. And even prior to the Americas being founded, right? You have different tribes, whether they're, America, South America, Central America, and, wherever they are, Africa, tribes, different places. And people, what I'm getting at is people have always been at odds with each other for what they could have from someone else. Like
100%.
Because it was like at one point you got cows, I have fish, let's trade them. And then at one point someone goes, I think I could take them and just take I'm going to take all their fish. We already got the cows. Let's just do that. And what I'm saying is like,
you're 100% right, but I will give you a counter to that. And that is that what is going on in Gaza right now, you have one side that has literally the best military grade weapons in the entire fucking world, and Air Force, artillery.
I'm not even debating
nukes,
that, by the way.
And these are like unarmed civilians. So that would be the difference.
But I'm not debating that.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm just saying, regardless of what's happening now, I'm not saying any of this is good or okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the human nature in it all is what the innate problem, whether it's Judaism or Christianity or tribalism or some God that they believe and they set up a totem and they pray to it. It's people, because this is kind of, and I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it should happen. I absolutely believe 100% it should stop, right? But I am talking about the biggest picture, the overarching theme of like humans are seemingly innately greedy and just want control and want power. Well before we ever had these conversations, well before we ever existed, well before Israel ever existed, Germany, didn't matter. I just think people they get to the point where they go, oh, I think I could take that. And then they just do it. And it's been a thing in human nature, no matter what. And that's
no 100%.
And it's just now we're playing with like bigger guns and more information.
But that, that's why we, developed NATO. There's been like, recent, times, we're supposed to be, less like, oh, well, I can take this, so I just will, right? Because like if we were to operate under that mentality, we'd just take fucking, whatever. We'd take Mexico, we'd take South America, we'd just take over the whole world because militarily, like we can do it. So I think we kind of like came to terms with, that you shouldn't just take things because you can. And I think you're right. Historically, that's kind of how it's been. Is like, people just took what they could take.
Even medieval time.
100%.
Just like, yo, I'm
100%.
stronger. I'm going to do it. That's mine. I want it. I want your family, whatever.
100%. And they did it. And that was how it used to go down.
So that's why I'm like, does it, no matter if it's Judaism and Jewish people, or does it ever really change?
That's a great question. But like I said, I think that the crux of this comes when you have this innate belief that you're better than other people, right? So it's like, did the Vikings have that? Maybe they did. Like did other people, have other people had that throughout time? Maybe, maybe not. But I know that Christianity doesn't preach that. And I know that, like these other religions don't tell you that you're better than everybody else and that it's okay to fuck over people that aren't of your religion. It's okay to steal from people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's
it's still happening though. It still happens. Like someone in that scenario thousands of years ago was like, I'm bigger than that guy and those group of people, and me and my boys are all bigger. So not maybe like I'm better than him, but like I can take what he
100%.
has. And it just happened regardless. So that's why I'm just saying I just believe, and I'm not okaying it. I believe it's a human thing that it's cynical. I know it's cynical.
No, listen, I'm cynical too. And I think, like I said, it's a good point. I just think that if you look at, the problems, and it's, it's not just the Palestine thing. Like, Palestine is one thing, but to me, it's like I feel like they're attacking white people. I feel like they're attacking Christianity. I feel like they're attacking masculinity. So it's like they're attacking me, and now I'm responding. I'm not attacking them. I'm not like the Jews. I'm not like, let's get rid of the Jews. They have too much money. It's not that. They chose to attack and to pit us against each other. They attacked masculinity, which is just generally bad for culture. And you see it in the dating. That's why I did that like dating course for guys, because I felt like nobody was giving them good information. Everybody's
Sigma thing, right?
Yeah, like it was just like a passion project that I just did because I felt like, dude, I looked out at the stats. It was like half the guys haven't had sex in the last year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm just like, what the man. But I think that stems from this attack on masculinity. When you attack masculinity, you attack what women are attracted to. Women are attracted to a masculine man. Like that's just a fact. They can deny it. They can say it's not true. But you look at the guys that are getting pussy, they're mostly masculine men, or they have like some traits. They're famous or super rich or whatever. But like primarily the guys throughout the history of time that have been attracted to women have been masculine men, right? So when you attack masculinity, when you push this like transgender homosexuality stuff, you're f***ing up with nature's replication cycle, because obviously like if everybody's gay, we go extinct. If everybody becomes trans, we go extinct, right? So it's like these things, it's fine. And I don't care if there's gay guys here or there, but like, why are they trying to make everybody gay? Why did I just turn on Deadpool versus Wolverine or whatever the fuck that is and have to see Deadpool using pronouns and he's gay now and like sticking his sword up some dude and laughing about how he's, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Why is everything gay? Like, I don't care if it's 10% because that's like naturally occurring. I don't give a fuck, man. I'm all about like, being accepting of people, but there's a difference between being accepting and forcing down your mother throat. And now I'm getting that forced down my mother throat and you're pushing on kids and Disney's pushing this. It's just nonsense. Like, what is going on? And so it's like, that's when I'm just like, what the fuck? And dude, like racism was almost gone in 2019. I didn't even think about somebody's race.
Yeah.
Who the fuck if you're black or you're white or this or that. When I was in the military, everybody used racial slurs. Nobody really gave a fuck. It wasn't like if somebody said fucking, the N word, it didn't have to result in a fight. Like people didn't have a fucking stroke.
They wouldn't survive in the COD lobbies.
Yeah, you insult people's mothers. It was like, maybe that was a fighting. But it was just like, dude, like you actually weren't a and like a word couldn't trigger you to the point where you lose all physical control of your body, right? Like, but now we're at a place where like everybody's so offended. Everybody's playing a victim. And look, like you go to Tony Robbins, man, the first fucking thing they teach you is do not be a victim. Like ownership, self-ownership. The problem with the victim mentality is it's like, okay, somebody else is to blame for my failures. And when you operate from that mentality,
it's the worst thing in the world.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But that's what they've pushed on everybody's. Now, like if you're not in a victim category, you don't have a voice. So now like obviously kids want to have a voice. They want attention. They want to be heard. So they're going to naturally gravitate to being gay or trans because now they have a voice. Now people care about them. Now people have to pay attention to them. Now people can't be mean to them. So they're creating a situation where they're pushing everybody in these directions. A lot of it like is unnatural, right? Like if somebody's born gay, cool, man. I don't give a like, fine. I'll hang out with you. You can come to my parties. You're not my chicks. Great. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Like, don't push that on an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I get it.
Don't like tell him it's better if he's gay.
Do you think that kind of changes? I feel like people are really starting to like notice that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. They all noticed it, but they were scared to say anything. And now we're getting to a point where like, and that's why I felt like taking my stand was important is because look, if I'm doing 150 down the highway, people are going to feel a lot more comfortable doing 75, doing 80, right? So it's like, I feel like somebody has to move the Overton window is what's okay to say. And that's why, like when Tate gets on and he says and this and that, it's just like, a lot of people get offended. And I'm not like, I'm like on the fence of that because like a part of it, I get what he's doing. But honestly, like the crazy thing is I think the net effect of that is positive because it makes it so it's like, okay, this is not such a big deal. Like this is not such a crazy thing. You don't have to be so offended. Words aren't that important.
Yeah, I saw that clip where he said that. Sitting down, he was kind of addressing why he says some of the stuff he says. A part of me though still feels like there's still the shock factor in relationship to it that just drives also engagement in the algorithm. So I'm just also like, I hear it and I can believe it. And I met Tate and I like Tate and I think he's a cool guy. I still think though they're aware and they're very smart people, very smart businessmen, very smart with the internet. Obviously the guy conquered it. And I think there's still a part of it that is, in my feeling, a little bit still disgenuine of like, I know that this is getting reaction, so I'm going to do it more.
Oh, that's 100% a part of it. That's unequivocal. I'm not saying that, this is like totally altruistic or whatever. Like, I'm just saying that I think there is a movement going in that direction that I think is positive. I think the positive of what he did when he did that was shift the Overton window of like what is offensive. Because prior to him, like nobody would say that word. And obviously, like, you shouldn't go around saying things that are going to be offensive to people. But the point is, like, a word shouldn't be so crazy that it like basically like turns off somebody's rational brain to where they have to go do something. You know, like people called me cracker all the time when I was growing up. You know, like they had a thing in my school where like black kids would beat up the white kids. It's called Cracker Day. You know, and I grew up, I was a little racist, a little mad at these black motherfuckers beating up white kids. Like I got over it. And the military is like, you know, they'd say racist, would say racist. And at the end of the day, we all had each other's back and it wasn't that big a deal. Yeah. You know, and that's like the healthy balance where like you can say whatever you want. People aren't going to lose their minds. It's not like, you know, you hate all black people. You know what I mean? Like it's just a normal society, right? Like people insult your mother and that could be off limits. And it's like, maybe that's fighting words, but I'm just saying like this whole idea of like, oh, you know, these people, you know, need to be in such a victim category. And I think that this is like another media thing the Jewish media pushed out where they put these, you know, the blacks in such a victim category and they put the Jews in such a victim category. They set up these victim categories so that you couldn't criticize them. And the first thing the Bolsheviks did before they murdered 30 million Christians was they made it illegal to criticize Jews. So it's not a healthy thing to make speech illegal. And I don't give a what guise you put it under of like, oh, we're protecting people or this or that, and we need this. You don't need censorship, period. It'll self-regulate. Yeah. You go out and you
do believe that.
Yeah, you go out and you say the man-word and you pop off and somebody beats you. Okay, well, now you around, you found out. Yeah. Maybe you won't say that anymore. Yeah. But like, you know, like these things self-regulate. You know, like if you go out and you say spick and some Mexican beats you out of you, maybe you won't say it again. You know, I don't know, but it's like, whatever, man, they're words at the end of the day. Like, and a lot of this, it's like you see some of the pushes of this and it's in comedy because it's like really fucking up what comedians can do. It's like so much, unless you're a black, gay, Jewish, Hispanic guy, you know what I mean? Like you can't really have free reign to say what you want. It's like, imagine being a white Catholic comedian.
And it's also ruined. It's ruined so much stuff like movies. I mean, I've always see the Tropic Thunder thing where Robert Downey Jr.
They could never do that again.
And it's like, bro, those were some of the best. And everyone also agrees. They go, these were the best movies. Like, bring this back. But then everyone's at the same time they're saying that they're still on the other hand being like, well, don't say this and don't say that. I'm just like, well, we gotta kind of like pick one.
Dude, censorship of free speech is never a good thing. And anybody trying to censor is not on the right side. That has historically been the truth. You look at, you know, you go to Mao's China, you cannot criticize Mao. You go to, you know, like Russia, you can't criticize. You know, you go to these places that are dictatorships or whatever, and it's like, you want to figure out who's in charge, figure out who you cannot criticize. Yeah. You know, and so it's like, I think that that's a bad thing. And like I said, I think it points in the direction of, you know, who's actually in control. And, you know, and if you're in control and you're not worried about criticism, which is, you know, how it should be. I mean, that's kind of how the American presidents are. Everybody can talk about Biden, they can talk about Trump. That's healthy. It's healthy because it's a good debate. You know, you learn the bad, you learn the good, you know, you get desensitized to people just like saying the same thing about Trump, saying, you know, Trump's a Nazi, Trump's a Nazi. Eventually it's just like, okay, whatever, dude. Yeah. You know, but if you couldn't say anything and then people were like whispering it in secret, it would actually have more significance and it would create more like undercurrents. So it's better just to have everything in the open.
I got a question for you, just on social media in regards to like what we're speaking about censorship. Did you see this coming? Because I remember when YouTubers were like, "Oh, you're a YouTuber, like you're a loser," and like Hollywood was still Hollywood. It was like still had the crown as far as like where you got your information or you listen to the media or the news outlet, and everyone was just kind of like, "Oh, you're a YouTuber." Like it was almost embarrassed because I'm so old now, but having these conversations is funny. I remember a time when it was like I mean, now there's times you can't say, you couldn't say certain things, or people's perception of you is just like, you're a YouTuber, you're a bullshit, right?
I think a part of that came from like guys like Jake Paul and Logan Paul, and I'm not like talking, but like some of their early stuff was kind of cheesy, but it was cheesy because it was catered to a really young audience. So I think that, and then, you know, some of this, and it was all kind of like, you know, super like, you know, politically correct and like very sensitive and like, you know, it's kind of like had like a little bit of a gay flair to it, you know, like, so I think that's what gave YouTubers a bad name, was because they were catering to their younger audience. They also never want to be demonetized because, you know, YouTube, another Jewish, you know, super censorship platform. If you say anything, the wrong thing, you get demonetized. The kick, Steve will do it off. You know what I mean? Like if you say anything against the narrative or anything like slightly controversial, they'll kick you off. So it's like maximum censorship, but they're also the only platform at the time that was paying. So it's like these people were like really like walking straight lines. They didn't want to swear. They didn't want to do this. So it's like anytime, you push the censorship and this politically correctness, it's going to make something lame, right? So I think there was that lame connotation because look, like, if you're in Hollywood, you could say, you could do crazy shit in Hollywood, in movies, right? Like it was kind of like no holds barred. I mean, it's been more guardrailed lately, but still like what you could do in a movie was radically different than what you could do in YouTube. So I think that, like I said, plus the fact that it was catered to a younger audience probably gave that. And then also there's just like so much clickbaity shit on YouTube. I mean, they've done so many like articles on me. I mean, like, what was it, like 4 years ago? I was broke. I was fleeing the country. I'm going to be arrested. It's like they just put so much nonsense out there that I think that causes people to lose respect for, the platform. But I think it's changed now because I think the content is better and people are consuming more of it and they're going more towards YouTube for entertainment because Hollywood has gone so downhill and their movies are so bad now. Like, dude, I used to be a big movie buff. Like, I love movies. I haven't watched a Hollywood movie that I liked in forever.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense because they started to fall in line with like their own sort of cues of what you could and couldn't do, so people stopped watching it. But did you see social media turning into what it is today?
I haven't been on social. I've really, it's funny, man. I've migrated to my like least big platform. Like I mostly only post on Twitter now. And it's funny because that was like the platform that I didn't give a shit about for most of the time. And so I'm not on Instagram as much anymore. So it's kind of harder for me to speak on where it's gone.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest part that I think that social media is a net negative is that it's so many people are just like on there to try and get attention. And it's like by any means necessary. So the problem with that is it's like you almost become like a caricature of yourself or a cartoon,
Don't you think you added to that a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Like, but what I was doing was authentic though. But it was just like, it was crazy nuts. Yeah. And so it got attention naturally, but I never did stuff for Instagram. I mean, like I would be doing this crazy because I want to do it. Towards the end of Ignite, it started to be a little bit more about like, okay, like we need to promote the brand.
Yeah.
So I did lose some authenticity. I mean, not in this, I was still all the girls and I was still doing all this, but some authenticity in the sense that I was like doing it more for the brand.
Sorry, I got to interrupt real quick. Was it ever true that like because someone would say this, I don't know if you told me this. I don't think you told me this. I think someone would say this about you. Was it true that if you tagged a girl, it was like your girl, you had slept with her?
Oh, I almost would never tag her. Oh, I would never tag her. I've made a few exceptions, but almost never tag her unless I'd hooked up with her. I mean, it's because to me, that's like almost like, like posting a picture of somebody else's watch, you know what I mean? Or like, I don't know, it just seemed unauthentic to be doing that. So, and I tried to, and I would never like post a picture with me and a girl. Like I said, some rare exceptions, for the brand or whatever. On the end of it, there was maybe a girl here or there, but like for the first, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, there was never a girl posted or tagged that I didn't.
Did you ever have dudes hit you up, be like, yo, that's my chick? What the?
Well, I mean, I was pretty open about it, man. I mean, it's like, dude, and I put this in my book. There's like some crazy that happened where like, dude, I'd post a chick like basically like naked on my plane and she had a boyfriend and then the boyfriend would start calling her and then like, I saw such you almost lose faith in humanity sometimes. Like she literally like turned her phone off, was banging me all night, turns the phone on at breakfast and was like, hey, have you fed the dog? Like not like, hey, how are you doing? Not like, sorry, I turned the phone. Like, bro, after a photo goes up of your girl naked on somebody's plane, then she ghosts you for 18 hours or whatever, and then hits you up about feeding the dog. Like, and then that dude married her. And even then when they were engaged, she hit me up in Italy trying to like meet me on a yacht to bang me while they were there engaged with her family. Bro, that I've seen is so fucked up. Like I stopped, like I basically made a rule. Like I wasn't gonna any chick that like had a boyfriend unless she was like already cheating or had cheated a bunch. Like, but pretty much my rule became like I wasn't gonna anybody or any girl that had a boyfriend. So I really tried to stick with that because I felt like that was just fucked up.
Yeah, bro.
But like, dude, you have to understand, like in college though, it was like, dude, I was like, chicks gonna me, you should anybody, so like, whatever, dude. This dude's gonna get cheated on. But then I think later, with more power, I think, comes more responsibilities.
Yeah.
It's like, I think there was like times when I could have a chick and she might not have otherwise cheated on the guy. So then I just cut it,
So let's talk a little bit about the Sigma thing and the courses that you have. What's like the main purpose of that? To teach men how to like be better with women?
Yeah, like I just want them to understand. Like, first of all, I want them to have a like roadmap of just the basics of what to do, what not to do. So many guys they would just stop making the mistakes that they made. Like if they just wouldn't fuck up, they would have a 99% chance of like doing better with women.
What do you think the biggest mistake guys make is?
Over communication of interest. I would say that is probably like the initial one. They come up, they over compliment the girl, they put her in a position of like, okay, I know I can have this guy. Do I want him?
They put her in a position of power.
Exactly. And like when, throughout your life, like you're trained to value scarcity. You're trained to value things that are hard to get, right? So if somebody makes something super easy to get for you, and it's very obvious that they want you, the first thing you're going to think is, okay, well, do I want this person? And when you're looking at somebody is like, okay, like I know I can have them. Do I want them? All of a sudden, all their flaws magnify. You're looking for things wrong with them. Let me tell you, when you're looking for things wrong with a human being, you're a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah. And I'm not saying, you have to be like super covert about all, like just coming up, leading with like a bunch of compliments, over communicating interest, chasing a girl. It's just like, it's the fastest way to make it run, So I think that's one thing. I think also there's relationship dynamics. That's a big factor. Guys give away way too much power.
Yeah.
They make concessions too frequently, where it's basically like women cheat because they get bored. Like that's why they cheat. And so they get bored when the guy is over available. And I'm not saying you should be a scumbag in a relationship. I'm not saying this stuff, but like when you over kiss her, when you're too available, especially in the initial dating phase, like before you guys are serious or whatever, you're just going to be more likely to run her off. And I think that a lot of guys, they've just been given bad directions. And, an example I like to give is like, if I tell you that Florida is west and I send you west, you're never going to get Florida. It's like, and that's the problem with guys today. They've been given bad directions and you see it, like you see it in the statistics. And also you couple that with the fact that women think that they deserve a guy that's 6 foot, whatever the fuck you are. And, and it makes millions of dollars a year and has a 10-inch dick and is really funny and is this and is that. It's just like, who the fuck, where the fuck do you think these guys are? Like even if you find a motherfucker like that, he's got a bunch of options. He's probably not going to want to date you. They want a guy that's famous. They want a guy that's this. It's just like, it's crazy what they think that they deserve. Yeah. And so when you have women that have this delusion of what they deserve because they've some football player, they haven't dated them. They found some football player that was drunk them one night. So they think that that's like what they deserve. And now they're comparing this computer tech to this, 6'8", like linebacker that, like great, it's like this guy's never going to live up to it. I'm just saying like they create this thing where it's very hard for guys to measure up to what they think they deserve. And so the best way to do that is to not chase them, because the moment you chase them, it's going to remind them that you don't have these things that they want. Whereas if they're chasing you, when you're chasing something, you're not thinking about what's wrong with you. You're thinking about how to get it. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a big thing. I mean, dude, you saw it. Like I put in absolutely almost no effort.
Yeah. I listen, I could attest to this firsthand.
And I'm not the best looking mother. I'm like pretty average looking guy. Like I was in good shape, like whatever.
But it's going to sound like I'm glazing because maybe I am a little bit, but I was there, bro. You were the most nonchalant dude I've ever seen. And it's like, I swear, because there's like maybe 12, 15 girls there. And they would always try to find a way to be close to you.
It's crazy, man.
It was so funny, dude.
And because of that, then it made the other ones want to do it. You know what I mean? It's like this pack mentality. You see it on these shows, like you see The Bachelor or whatever. It's like, if this girl randomly saw the guy in The Bachelor in a bar, she probably wouldn't look at him twice. But because those other 19 girls want to fuck him on that show, she's going to do anything to bang him. It's like this, there's pre-selection, there's jealousy, there's all these things. And what I want guys to understand is like all the different attraction triggers, what they can do to make themselves better looking. Because look, as a man, you have a big advantage over women. Women are kind of like, what they're born with is kind of like what they've got. If they're super big boned, if Bertha from Idaho, they're probably never going to be a 10. But a guy can be a 10. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy that's, 5'8" can be a 10 if he gets rich enough, famous enough, gets enough girls that are interested in him, whatever. I've seen it, dude. In college, there was this dude who was like 5'7", didn't have any money, but a lot of girls wanted to him. He didn't really care because he had abundance. And because of that, it was like, dude, these girls were like literally like throwing themselves at him because he didn't care. They wanted him more and they were fighting for him. It's like, oh, why doesn't this guy like me? They're not worried about the guy that's texting them 15 times. They're not worried about the guy that they can call anytime and that guy's ready to take them on a date. They're worried about making this guy like him. So it's like, there's a part of it that's gaming it. There's a part of it that's understanding psychology. I think that's a big piece of it. And then there's also just understanding how to make yourself more attractive to a woman.
So there's two questions I have that I get asked all the time that I think are some of the most important like things, and I want you to answer them. The first one is, because in order to achieve like the money, to have the things like, let's say you're the guy who's not as tall or not as good looking, whatever, and you have to try to find these other avenues to make yourself more desirable, like money or success or popularity. How do you figure out what your purpose is? This is like I know it's very open-ended, but a lot of people ask that question.
Well, when you say purpose, you mean like what are your attraction triggers? Like what should you kind of like focus on?
Not in regards to women, but to find your own success.
Well, that's going to
like, what's the first step?
So I would say, and this is true with women, this is true with finance, this is true with whatever, is you basically want to find like what you have going for you and like lean on your attributes, like if you're a guy that's, really funny, then, maybe dating apps aren't the best way to meet women. You know what I mean? Like if you're a guy that's less attractive, then you're going to do worse on dating apps, right? So I would say that, with the women, you want to like figure out what your strongest attraction triggers are and then put yourself in positions where those will be magnified. And then as far as with the finance stuff, I would say, what do you have going for you? Like what are you interested in? What do you already have a, foundation of knowledge of, or where do you think the industry is going? Like, now if a kid, just said, I don't know, I'd say, okay, well, I'd probably learn AI because I think there's going to be a lot of money in AI.
Yeah.
Like I would kind of like try and figure out where the market is going to go and try and be a pioneer in that space. And I don't think it's necessarily as important to do something that you like. A lot of people stress that.
Yeah.
But my outlook was always like make the most amount of money in the shortest period of time possible that you can, so that way you can enjoy it when you're young. Because
poker
for me, yeah. Well, for me at the time, you got to understand, I came in at the right time. Like that was right time, right place. And that's another thing, that book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, that's one of the things that he stressed in that book is like much of success is like being at the right place at the right time and then capitalizing.
Well, this goes back to the AI thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and for me, I was at the right time, the right place with poker because that 2003 was like really when kind of like people even started looking at poker. It started being on ESPN. Chris Moneymaker won the World Series. It was like this whole thing. Celebrities started playing it. Rounders came out, whatever. And so it was kind of like the poker boom. And I was there before everybody got really good. I also had a good backstory to get me into the private games, the whole trust fund thing or whatever. And so I was able to capitalize on that. And it also was a job that gave me a lot of freedom and flexibility. I was my own boss, which I functioned well with the freedom. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody.
No, I was joking. It's not.
Yeah,
that's definitely not the first option. Mm-hmm. Okay, the second question, and I get asked this one a lot too, is it obviously I don't think any of us is going to avoid this, and I kind of want to ask you this too, like personally, how to get over heartbreak, because in order to get the actual girl you want at some point, right, you probably have dealt with a girl that got rid of you, or you got rid of her, you had a heartbreak. And it's really hard for people to move past that.
100%. I think the best way to do it is to start dating again, to get another option, to get other options, to get your mind off of it. Because I have broken up with girls and then I went on vacation. That is the last thing that you should do. Because now you're like out there, you have no options. You're only thinking about her. You're missing her. It's all this shit. So definitely do not try and run away. Don't go on vacation. Don't like go off on your own. Like just get back on the horse, like you
don't think it's important to process that though, to like sometimes
for sure. I'm not saying get back into like a super serious relationship. I'm just saying like, meet other girls, like get out there, start dating. And I think part of the process is figuring out like what you did wrong, what she did wrong, why it didn't work. I mean, every relationship, I think the biggest disasters are your biggest learning moments. And I think that's not just true of relationships. I think that's true in life. Like I've learned the most through my failures. So when you succeed, it's like, what do you learn? Like, the fastest guy in the race, like, okay, whatever, man. But like when you lose that race, like, oh, I should have done this. I picked up on this. I didn't have the endurance at the end. Like you learn from failure. So That's another reason why I tell people just get back on the horse, even if it's just a rebound, whatever, but it gets your mind off of that. You start like, you know, and then maybe that ends up getting you back with the girl. Maybe you appreciate her more because, you know, you've gone out, you've dated a few girls and you realize like, you know, you're much more compatible with her, whatever. But like, I think a mistake that people make is they just kind of like sulk and they focus on it. And I think just keep moving forward. Don't look back.
Yeah. And I think you said something important though. It's about also to like processing it in a way where you're able to understand the lesson in it. Cause I think a lot of people, it happens and they're just mad and like, F you, this happened to me. And it is good obviously to go date and find someone else, but I think it's also really important to like look at the situation. How did you actually fuck up? Like where were your actual mistakes? Like your own accountability. Cause it goes back to the thing we talked about earlier about the victimhood and being like, this just happened to me. Not like how I showed up here and how I up, so that you could actually, when you get the right one or the next one or whatever it is, because everyone's obviously different and could actually be the right one is probably the next one, who knows, but it's like actually giving yourself time to process this, like, okay, this is where I fucked up, this is where I showed up wrong, I could have done this differently, and learn it instead of just be sad about it happening. Because most people are afraid of doing that part and they just keep repeating. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done it where I've had it, certain relationships, long relationships, lost them, did the same thing the second one, lost it. And I was like, damn, I could have made these work, but I didn't learn the lesson when it was my time to learn the lesson. I got the lesson again, and I got it harder and harder each time.
Yeah, that's another reason I kind of like mapped it out for these guys too, is because I wanted them to understand what they were doing wrong. I think a lot of guys make mistakes and don't realize what they're doing. Like they'll lose small battles and it'll end up having like a downstream, very big net negative effect. And they won't realize where it came from. Like, you know, for instance, like just being, you know, too overly agreeable. Like every time, if your girl wants to watch a rom-com, you cave and like, okay, baby, you know, like this whole happy wife, happy life thing. I mean, you probably don't do it. I know you don't do it, but I'm just saying a lot of guys make this mistake and they make it in relationships too, where they like make these small concessions and then they become expected and not appreciated.
And then when they say no, it's a big problem.
Exactly. It's like you take a guy out to dinner, you pay 9 times, you don't pay on the 10th time. He looks at you like you raped his mother. You know what I mean? It's just like, what the dude, you know, so you set these precedents, and the problem is if you constantly cave, you're setting a precedent of like whatever she wants, she's going to get, and then you're just going to have a fight. Versus like if you're like, no, we're watching this, or I want to see this, and you're challenging, and then you make a concession later. Now she appreciates it. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a very different dynamic, and I think that's a big mistake guys make. And
it's also, I think, an unspoken thing that in the challenging, when you're like, you're not just bending over and saying, okay, I'm doing this because you want this. She probably also looks at you a little bit differently, where she's like a little more respect for the fact that you stood your ground.
Yeah, because you're sub-communicating that you're willing to walk. You're sub-communicating that you have boundaries. You're sub-communicating that like, okay, like, you know, this is what I want. And I think relationships are better when she's focusing on trying to make you happy and you're focusing on trying to make her happy. And it's, you know, both things, as opposed to like you just doing whatever she wants to appease her. That's going to be boring to a girl. You know, so it's like, it's good to be good to your partner, but there is a too much of that. And the problem is if you do too much, they get bored. And when women get bored, they cheat. I mean, I'm just telling you, I can't tell you how many times a girl started off a story of how she cheated on her boyfriend, but he was so nice, but he was so nice, but
every time.
Yeah. And I would hear it, dude. That was like the only thing I really cared about talking to these girls about was like crazy shit they did. So like I would hear nutty stuff. You know, and it's
and
like
then they're on your plane.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was like, oh, you know, my boyfriend, like, you know, he liked this other girl's Instagram photo, and then this chick sucking my dick, and it's like, wait, like what the, you know, you're mad at him for liking a girl's Instagram photo, but then you think it's okay to suck my dick. Like it's just, I don't know, man. The double standard was crazy.
So okay, so speaking of too much, we're gonna talk a little bit about supplements, fitness, gear. What was your best cycle? What was your worst cycle?
So I'm weird because I don't respond well to very many things, unfortunately.
I know we've had this conversation.
Yeah, and I can't do too much. I would have been the guy blasting gear out. You know, I'd be a.
The best part about you is, and it sounds like glazing again, but I don't care, is that you're the same exact dude on camera and off camera. Yeah, that's the best part. Because when I have this conversation, I'm like, we talked about this, but obviously I know they probably haven't heard it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as you get older, you just stop caring, and you see this in like, you know, the highest degree with like the 80-year-old man that just says whatever he wants, right? I can think, and I just got there sooner. So yeah, man, I just don't apologize for who I am, and I'm honest, and I just put it out there. So as far as cycling, I mean, I want to preface this with, I would not recommend any steroids for people that are under 18, or I would even say 20 or 21. Because
I agree.
You don't want to fuse your epiphyseal plate. It's not about like, listen, I'm like the big advocate of gear. I tell people like all the time, like go get your levels checked. If you're sub 500, get on, it'll change your life. You'll feel way better, whatever. But that being said, if you're younger, you don't want to lose a few inches on your height to gain a few inches on your biceps. You know, it's like you can always, get muscle later. And honestly, like building that foundation of like natural muscle where you work for it. And I think it's
also building the habits.
Building the habits, exactly. So many guys, I see them, and it's like now they can't even work out unless they take a D-ball for pre-workout. And it's like they get very reliant on this stuff. Yeah. And like, if you get reliant on it, dude, if you've worked out for 5-6 years on no juice, and then you get on the juice, you appreciate it more, but you also still have that work ethic. You remember what it's like to make those slow gains, because juice really exacerbates it. And I think that's actually the reason why a lot of guys in the open category aren't as good now as they used to be, is because they're on gear year round and they don't ever want to cruise, and they're always blasting, because now social media, they have to always be on.
Yeah.
So they don't really have like that downtime, that off cycle, give the receptor sites some time to, rest and recoup. And because of that, I think they hit walls, and then their answer is just like, gram a trend and gram, it's just like, man, it's really unhealthy. And when you have those super physiological doses, that's when you have so many higher instances of side effects.
For sure.
And you don't really get that much proportionate muscle gain for the disproportionate amount of side effects that you'll get with it. So I'm a big advocate of like doing it responsibly, and I'm a big advocate of HRT if you have low testosterone.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to do an HRT clinic. I think that would be cool, because it's such a small amount of money makes such a big impact on your life. And I think now with the diets and whatever, like estrogen is at its all-time high. And I don't think guys even understand how much different they will feel with a high normal level of testosterone. Like, you don't have to be on I actually have issue with, like, I would recommend people don't do cycles. I mean, you could do it here or there, add a little bit of an anabolic, but I'm a big fan of just like steady progress. And that's why I like HRT.
Yeah.
Is because you're just making steady progress. The problem with the cycle, for like some 22-year-old guys, he starts blasting all this gear, gets super jacked, super strong. And then when he gets off, which you have to get off at some point, then it's like, dude, who wants to go to the gym and get weaker and smaller? It's like, it's just so much. I would much rather have a slower uptick and constant progress than like this big peak and then this valley. And so, I like I said, I'm a big advocate of HRT. And I think that also you should do kind of like the minimum to get the result. And then, obviously, like, if you really want to be a pro bodybuilder, you just want to be super freaky, whatever, do whatever you got to do, but like you would be surprised at how much good benefit you can get from like doses that guys don't even talk about. Like, dude, right now I'm running like 8 milligrams of MPP every day, and I'm doing 24 milligrams of test.
Yeah. Which every day?
Every day.
So that's in a week.
Like, I'm like a little under 275 on test.
Yeah.
And I'm at like 56 milligrams of NPP. I mean, it's pretty low, dude.
It's minimal, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, I have a much better feeling than when I'm not saying a better feeling, but I have much better results in the gym than just doing like the 140 a week of HRT. So it's like a small bump, but then when I get off and I go back to the 140, I don't feel like I just dropped off. I don't lose my gains. I don't feel like in fact, my sex drive actually goes up because the MPP actually like lowers my sex drive, which I found out. I'm actually like implementing that almost to help me with my sex addiction. Because MPP is like it's a nandrolone. Well, it does, dude. It's like a nandrolone, so it kind of like lowers your sex drive a little bit, which is like a welcome thing for me. Because, dude, I was 3 times a day, every day. It was just like, dude, my whole day like revolved around pussy, and then I would get the gym in there, and by the time I was done 3-4 times and hitting the gym, it's like, dude, I didn't have that much, and I ate 5 times. Like, by the time you do all that stuff, it's almost like that's like
it's nighttime, most
of your day. And then you watch a movie, then you do it again. It's like it's all right, but I just it's not like a
I think the most important thing you said too, though, is blood work, getting your blood work done, because there's a lot of things that I think men, like you said, there's so many other things going on now with like the microplastics, all the bullshit, water, all this kind of in like our society that's insane, that I think men aren't even aware that their levels might be low. And I'm not saying like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, but 20, mid-20s, 30s, I think it's very normal for people. It shouldn't be, but they have lower testosterone than I think historically.
100%.
And I think getting your blood work done, whether you're planning on taking steroids or not, or performance enhancers or not, is like one of the most important things you can do at any point, because you can kind of identify what's going on. And I think not enough people know what is happening in their body. And if you do that and you know it, you could change little things, like even just supplementing with like basic things like vitamin D can change your sleep. And if you're changing your sleep, everything else in your life can be different.
Serotonin then goes up. So now you're happier. You can be depressed. I mean, there's, so many things you learn from your blood work. And there's so many factors too. Like the way I would describe doing HRT is like the difference between going from like a Mustang to a Ferrari. Like you take a Mustang around the track, it's probably never going to break down, but it's not going to be that much fun. You know what I mean? But like a Ferrari's going to break more, but it's also going to be a lot more fun when it's fucking going. And there's more things to tune. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I would look at HRT, is like you're basically running a Ferrari. And when you're doing that, like you got to look at your estradiol, you got to look at your free test, your serum test, you know, your cholesterol, your hemoglobin, hematocrit, like, you know, there's all these things that start changing. You have to realize like how you respond to drugs. Yeah. So that's why I always tell people, anytime you're ever considering this stuff, get your blood work done, establish your baseline, and then make an informed decision. Like if your baseline is 900 tests, like, man, unless you're a pro athlete, I would say just don't fix it if it ain't broke.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like I would really recommend against that. But look, if you're a guy that's just like, I want to do it, then, you know, whatever, just do it smart. But really, just run tests initially, you know, whatever you're, you know, start with 200. You know, if you're a guy that, you know, doesn't respond. Look, everybody responds differently to 200 milligrams of test too, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
So like you're going to respond differently than me and, you know, and some other guy, right? So like find out what that does to you. And I always say like shoot every day, because you load with like a, you know, 21 gauge and then you shoot with a 30 gauge insulin needle, half inch. I mean, it's literally like you're taking a diabetic shot, shoot it all through your quads, shoulders.
Microdosing it basically.
Microdosing, because that's how your body naturally does it. And the beauty of doing that is then when you get your blood work done, every day is the same.
Yeah.
If you shoot 200 milligrams on Friday, levels on Saturday and Sunday are going to be way different than Thursday, right? So like, you know, you just have to like figure out what your test is, and it's hard to do that. And then also your aromatization is going to be different, right? If you have a super high test, you're going to aromatize because your body wants your test and your estrogen to be more balanced.
You're going to have more of these peaks and valleys that are going to cause more like I'm upset, or I'm like in a bad mood, or instead of having that consistent flow.
Exactly. And then the problem is your test starts high, so your estrogen then starts to rise, and as your estrogen is rising, your test is going down, and then, you know what I mean?
Then you're crying watching rom-com saying yes to your girl.
Bro,
you're like,
dude, sweating at night.
I didn't want to watch this. Now I'm crying.
Dick don't work. You know what I mean? It's like crazy, and it's hard. It's even hard for me, and I've been doing this for 20 years, to differentiate between low estrogen and high estrogen. And that's something you have to figure out too, because just nuking your estrogen is not the answer. That can fuck up your dick, fuck up your sex drive, fuck up your sleep. You know, high estrogen is obviously, you know, can be bad too. It's also bad for your heart to have low estrogen.
Yeah.
So anyways, you really want to like figure out all that shit. And then your creatine kinase levels, figure out if you're overtraining, your cortisol levels. There's just so many things that you can just get in you know, in just common blood work that will give you an idea of where you're at. And I honestly think it's the future of medicine, because if you have 100%. That stuff, then you can predict problems before they happen. And doing preventative stuff is much more effective than trying to like fix something once it's like crashed.
Yeah, reactionary. Yeah. So you've been in fitness for a long time. I know that you had a supplement company before, Steel Supplements, right?
So I was working with Jason He, this Chinese cocksucker, and basically we did this deal where I was getting 10% of gross in perpetuity. He was doing $200 to $300K a month in sales, and I, you know, started promoting his stuff, and they went to like $5 million a month in sales. And so he was doing great. He got a big email list. He was retargeting all this stuff. But we would fight. We would fight all the time because he didn't want to do A/B testing on the prices. I was just driving like hot traffic, and like, you know, you know, his stuff was, you know, it was better than what was out at the time. But I was like, dude, you got to price this stuff more effectively. And he would just put high prices on it, and people would buy it because, you know, I'd post about it and whatever. And then he started cutting corners. You know, I wouldn't even take his whey protein because he used whey protein concentrate instead of isolate because it was cheaper. And so like, anyways, we had this whole thing where he basically ended up, you know, he was making all this money, this big email list, and didn't want to pay me anymore. So he sued me, and he sued me under the premise that there was like a full send bag in the background of a video that I did. And I'm like, bro, like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's full send ain't paying me anything. They sent me a duffel bag. It's like, and they had supplements for like 3 months or something. You know what I mean? Anyway, so he like somehow weaseled out of his contract, and anyways, it was actually like a blessing because I'd wanted to do a supplement company right because I don't like artificial sweeteners and I don't like artificial flavors. And I found that actually when I started messing around with insulin. I did insulin for like 3 weeks, got up to like 218 pounds or something. And
I've always been afraid to try it.
Yeah, dude, don't do it. But I learned some things because insulin basically makes your body like a sponge. It's a transport mechanism.
Right.
And what I learned was when I would take his supplements, when I was taking insulin, it would make me sick because like I would absorb all those like artificial sweeteners and bull. And dude, I'm just telling you, if you haven't learned this after the whole COVID debacle, like the government is not interested in your health, nor do they even understand your health. I mean, look at the food pyramid. Anybody that would recommend 11 servings of bread a day
Grains.
doesn't know dick about fitness. So you should not listen to anything they say. And I don't give a what they tell you. Artificial sweeteners are not good for you. So I removed all the artificial sweeteners. Like the protein is grass fed from us, New Zealand, like whey protein isolate, no concentrate, no bullshit. Like I just wanted a supplement company that I would take the stuff. And I was like, I was working out at Dragon's Lair over at Flex's place. And I remember me and my buddy, my training partner, we would do like the BCAAs, but the unflavored.
Yo, yeah, it's true.
Dude, it was disgusting. But I would rather that than the artificial flavor. So I just got to a point where I wouldn't take any supplements because they were all just so nasty. And so I wanted to make some shit that I would actually take and that didn't f with my gut too. That was another thing is I would get bloated, like the whey protein concentrate especially, like it would just f with my gut and artificial sweeteners as well. So I eat so clean that I found when I like introduced any that wasn't, pure into my body, I would feel it. It's kind of like if you just eat super clean all the time, you go have McDonald's, you're going to feel like
stomach's
death.
hurting, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're some random high school kid that's eating shit every day, you don't even notice it, right?
Yeah.
But like,
it is having an effect regardless though.
Yeah. For sure. You just don't, your body's just,
It's funny as I've gotten older, I noticed that way more, which makes sense. Your body gets less sort of efficient over time, but I've definitely noticed that with artificial sweeteners with bullshit where I'm just like, I swear I'm not kidding because I've had problems with vertigo in the past, but I don't know why. Like 2 weeks ago, I ordered like I must have been high or something that night, and I was playing video games, and I ordered my Postmates like a bunch of Diet Coke, and I must have drank like 4, and I'm well hydrated, but I wake up the next morning and I got vertigo literally the next morning. I was like, no, and then I haven't drinking it since, haven't had it since.
Yeah, dude, I'm
So
telling you,
trash.
I know for a fact artificial sweeteners are not good for you. And so I eat pretty clean. I try to just avoid all processed foods, like all that stuff. And I feel better. I know, and I actually wore those glucose monitors for a while, like the ones that you like put on the back of your tricep or whatever. Yeah. And so I'd monitor my glucose all the time, and I would see how it would respond. And anytime I had anything that was processed, blood sugar would spike through the roof. It would fuck up my sleep. I track all my. I got like the Whoop, the Aura Ring. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when I wake up.
You're funny because when we set up the pods, I remember this time and last time we tried to set up a pod like time ago, and you were like, yeah, listen, if my sleep's up, I'm not sharp. Like I can't do the interview. I was like, what the f is this guy talking about? It makes sense. I get it. You want to be sharp.
You, like,
but I can tell you take it serious.
Bro, cognitive function is so much stuff. Like sleep is so important. It's one of those things where it's just people that have great sleep take it for granted. They don't understand how lucky they are. And when you have bad sleep, you start really realizing how important it is.
Yeah.
Before this, I took a nap, and I'm cognitively much sharper than I would have been if I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I definitely notice it. And as you said, as you get older,
you feel it way more.
You do, man. And drinking with all that. And part of it is hormones. We don't have to deal with that because we're good on hormones. We don't have to worry about lowering our tests because we're just going to shoot more. But with like stem cells like that, which has a very strong effect, they just decrease over time. I mean, I've been doing stem cells for 10 years, and I'm telling you, like when I do them, your body repairs, you feel younger. And that is a big, I think hormones, stem cells, and I think there's stuff that we don't even know about yet that we're going to find out, as time goes on. But like you see all these, I mean, they did studies where they did, this Chinese general, he was one of the many studies that they did this, but he would take blood transfusions from young soldiers and he would swap it out with his blood and actually like really stopped his aging process. And they did this with rats. They actually showed old rats that got blood infusions of young rats. They actually reversed the aging process. Now I don't think that humans can reverse, but you can absolutely slow
it down.
I think at some point we're going to figure out how to stop it. I don't know if we're ever going to figure out how to like reverse it, but I think we're going to figure out how to like really like slow it down.
That's getting weird. That's when we start talking about AI and this like the future.
Well, but if you think about it, if like, okay, so testosterone, that's one of the reasons why you definitely feel older is your testosterone starts to drop. So we already figured out how to replace that. Stem cells, that's one thing that like definitely decreases over time. You start replacing that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think we're going to be able to fuck with it where, because look, I don't want to be 150 in a wheelchair, you know, but like if you could still be doing your shit at like 80, 90, you know, that to me, it's not about living forever. It's about like quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder where it goes though. Actually, I mean, all I know is I tweeted some shit the other day because it pissed me off, but they were talking about like teleporting humans and I was mad because like they couldn't even fix balding. I was like, this is bullshit.
Turkey's pretty good. I don't know.
But still, it's like I've seen it. The quality of it is just sometimes like not the same, which obviously you're not going to get exactly the same as natural. But it just seems like we are getting to like a part in like human society where things are getting really weird.
Yeah,
really in so many ways. And I honestly, I'm so curious. Like I hope I survive long enough just to see how weird it is. But then part of me is also like, do I want to survive that long to see it get like really weird? Because we're getting less human.
It's a crazy thing, dude. And things are hyper accelerating too. It's like you look at like how much happens in a 5-year block now versus what happened from, 1955 to the 1960s. You know what I mean? Like it was just like such small changes. And now it's like, dude, society's changing, things are changing, internet, you know, it's just, man, it's interesting. I really believe that AI is going to change the game. I mean, because it's learning, it's just access to information, it's just immediate, and then couple that with a cell phone, and they're talking about brain chips. I don't think I'm ever going to do that.
That one's scary, bro.
It is, but it's crazy. I mean, they're basically going to turn people into computers if they do that. But yeah, it's
just because like at that point you started talking about everything we spoke about earlier, like the control or the information propaganda, whatever era of like, yo, believe this, think this. It almost seems like if you get closer to that, then if it's in technology, it could just be baked in by whoever's designing the technology. Where it's like, oh, that, let's say Dan was talking about XYZ. We don't want to press a button. He's, we got him. We don't got to find him.
It's crazy. I think there is a positive to this. I think like Cat Williams said, he said 2024, the year that all lies will be exposed. And I think there is an element of like the veil being lifted with how much access we have to information and also like people's perception. I feel like people are getting pretty good at like seeing through bullshit and people are understanding like old things. You know what I mean? Like things that like used to trick people. I mean, look, dude, when I was young, man, I would look at a celebrity and I'd be like, oh my God, that person. And I guess I've had probably more access to celebrities than most people, but I don't get like that anymore. You know what I mean? I just see everybody as like human beings, and like I think flaws are more on display. You got like a guy like The Rock, for instance. Like that guy is so overexposed. Like every day he's on Instagram, he's doing this, he's doing that. Like you just see him all the time. And I think it takes out some of the mystique of like the celebrity that you used to have with like a Brad Pitt or a Leo or these guys that like there was just different star power and there was different kind of like mystique to them. And I feel like now, since everything is overexposed, I think the upside of it is that it seems like people are figuring, I mean, dude, I'm just telling you, the Piers thing was like a game changer for me. The comment part of it, just reading those comments, being like, holy, like I thought I was going to get roasted in the comments. In fact, there's this Jewish guy that did a podcast. I randomly ended up seeing it. It was so funny. He like was talking about the interview and, whatever. And he's like, let's see what the comments, he was all excited, thinking that they're going to talk about me because Piers is fucking pretty hard on me, right? So he goes in these comments. It's like he starts reading for like 10 minutes. Like, I'm not going to stop until I read one that's not anti-Semitic. And it's like, this guy gets like 40 minutes. And he's like, I'm not going to stop. And he's reading every single comment. And every single one is like on my side. They get it. They understand what's going on. And then he had his producer or whatever start reading all the newest comments simultaneously to him. After an hour and a half, this guy finally threw in the towel. But every single comment that he read for an entire hour.
What is his reaction to that while he's seeing it?
His face is twitching. I think he had Tourette's or something, which didn't help the cause.
Oh, you're talking about, it sounds like Ethan.
Maybe.
It's got to be Ethan
Jewish
Klein.
guy. It's like twitching and weird shit. I thought he was like twitching because he was freaking out on the
No, he does have Tourette. You're describing Ethan. I didn't
that's
see it,
the
but
guy.
I'm assuming you're talking about Ethan.
He's got like white hair, like kind of like white and black hair, like combed back, curly. He looks Jewish.
Dude, it's definitely Ethan.
It's got to be him. Yeah.
That tripped me out. Can you pull up on my phone?
It's got to be him. Yeah. But he read for an hour and a half. It was hilarious, man.
It's funny because I love Ethan.
Yeah, he was pissed about it. Don't tell him you're friends with me.
I want to bring up something you said about the celebrity thing and like just like where we're going as a society. I think it was interesting to see even just during the whole election process how all the celebrities come out and they're paying they're saying they're paying all this money. I don't know what's paid or what's exchanged.
They definitely paid.
You think so?
Oh well, they acknowledged it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any celebrity is gonna like lie about saying they got money to endorse somebody because that's kind of a hit on them, right? It's kind of like that's the definition of selling out, right? If you're taking money to endorse somebody. It's kind of like that's.
Well, so they said that they got paid?
Yeah. So and like 10 million, I think they paid to one.
Well, it's insane.
Well, because dude, she was like negative on her campaign, and she raised a lot of money.
Yeah, I saw that at the end of it, and then trying to ask for more at the end. But what I was saying was, it's interesting how even though like it's kind of speaking to what we're talking about as far as people like becoming more aware of like the world and just literally through social media, is that like the idea of celebrity is like really dying. Because people don't care. They're not like, this person said it, that person said it. I feel like 10 years ago, they'd be like, because those were the only avenues where you were getting information 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you were like, oh, I'll agree because I kind of like their music or I like their movies, whatever they're. And it's just like people are like, this is not meaning anything to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of like twofold on it. I feel like a part of it, I feel like people have lost like some of the like mesmerization of celebrity. I think 10 years ago or so, people were more like starstruck by celebrity. But the flip side of that is I feel like people also care about it more in the sense that like everybody's trying to be famous because now it's like more accessible to the average guy or average girl. You've got like Hawk Tuos, these like no talent or, Cash Me Outside, these idiots that like make crazy money and become famous with literally no talent because they just do one thing and then capitalize on it. And so I think the average person, unfortunately, is like so many of them are trying to be famous. Whereas I think like 10, 15 years ago, the average person didn't think it was like a possibility to become famous.
Yeah.
And now I feel like they're all like aspiring to be. And I feel like there's more emphasis on it. It's almost like if you don't have a certain amount of followers in LA, like people don't like, they won't even talk to you kind of, you know what I mean? There's almost like this hierarchy. And I would see it on the trips with the girls too. Like the girl that had the most followers, the other girls would like kiss her ass. You know what I mean? It was like a crazy, like this pecking order that was established based on following. It was sad.
So,
really,
so you think it's overall a better thing though, it feels like, but it is also a double-edged sword. Cause there's just now everyone thinks that, I don't know, that's the only thing that they should be trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's
because I'm like, who are the firefighters and the police officers going to be now in the future? It's like everyone's trying to be a social media person.
Well, it's hard, man. It's like, if people think that they can make a bunch of money just like being themselves, they don't realize like how of a like job it is and how much effort these like content creators have to put into like creating this stuff.
Yeah.
Especially since the bar is being constantly lifted all the time. It's like what people are going to respond to and this and that, and they get caught in these like treadmills of like trying to keep up with their own. I will say, I think that it's taken away from experiences, unfortunately. Like when you go do things, I feel like so many people, it's all about like capturing that moment as opposed to enjoying the moment now.
Yeah, for sure.
Like everything.
Bro, I feel like people getting working out just to make content, not even to work out anymore.
Oh, the gyms are really bad.
That's the
gyms
worst.
are brutal. I mean, it's funny. I've gone the opposite direction. Like I'll go on a vacation and I'll like think that I'm going to get some like great content. Then I'll just like getting nothing, never filming, never taking a picture. But I enjoyed it, and I was there and like,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like it's surprising because I think with I went in different directions, and I think Ignite was like the pinnacle of caring about the content because it was for a brand.
Yeah.
And so I could rationalize it out too. Cause I think there's like a part of me too that like treated it like a video game. Like I wanted to win. I wanted like more likes. I wanted this. It was like competitive.
Yeah.
And I think the brand gave me the excuse. Cause before it was like, I was like very strict about it. I was like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. You're either going to capture it or you're not. But like this trip is going to be about like getting content. It's going to be about, having fun, girls doing, we're going to go out. We're going to blow up an RV in the desert. We're going to drive a tank or, whatever it was. It was about like the doing of the thing. And like the camera guys were like, they had to capture it. And if they missed it, like they missed it. We weren't going to set up shots, like none of it. And I was like very strict about that. It was like, kind of back to the whole thing of like, I wasn't going to post a girl. I wasn't going to like, I just had like a very like strict code. It's like, and I think that's why my stuff did well, is because it was like all like very authentic to stuff that I wanted to do. And I think the lines got a little bit blurred with Ignite, because then it was a little bit more about like also promoting a brand. So I could, then it was like easier to justify like, okay, well, we got to get this shot,
Yeah. Is it true that you're in lawsuit with your father?
Yeah.
What the?
He's such a dickhead. He's been in a lawsuit with every person he's ever like been friends with or been in business with, and it's not a surprise. But yeah, dude, they like, when I tweeted in support of Palestine, they literally illegally kicked me off the board of my company. They like forced me out. I mean, I still own half of it,
Yeah.
But yeah, they like illegally kicked me off the board and like took out my control, and they didn't even let me vote at the shareholders meeting. It's just like literally like breaking laws. And now the motherfucker is indicted, and the CEO got arrested. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know where that's going to end up, but yeah, he's just, and the crazy thing is the sales have never been better. They're like, oh, these tweets are going to ruin it. And it's like, okay, well, whatever, it is what it is. Like, this is my position. I'm not going to like change it. I'm like, why can't you just go back to posting hot chicks? And, I'm just like, dude, like, that's just not me. You know what I mean? Like, like, I beat my sex addiction. I'm not going to go back to it to sell some vapes, But the crazy thing is the vape sales are actually the highest they've ever been. We're going to do 150 million in sales. You know what I mean? Like, so it's crushing. And surprisingly, I actually thought, but I just didn't care, man. I was just like, eventually you get to a point where you just like feel like you got to do what you believe. And I think when you do that, you're actually gonna be a lot happier. I found that I was much happier when I started just like making decisions based on like what I thought was right and not worrying about any of the rest of the fog. Because look, when you think they're going to kill you or arrest you or whatever, you see, your days become brighter, because you feel like there may be less of them. So you're kind of like, like I'm not going to worry about this. I remember I did a mushroom trip like 4 months ago or so, or 6 months ago, whatever it was. But I remember, man, I dove off this super high. I just wasn't worried about it. It's like, I might not be here that long. I'm just going to do what I want. And I was just, man, it really felt good. And I think a lot of my life, I got so worried about like the future and planning for this and prepping for this. And like, I didn't spend as much time in the moment. And I will say that's one of the things that I've been doing more often is just like living in the moment. And you will be happier when you do that. I think depression comes from focusing on the past or trying to perfect the future. We get, and I'm OCD like you too. So we always want like everything to be perfect. And I think when you get in that mindset, it's hard because nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Why do you think it's so hard to not listen? Excuse me. Why do you think it's so hard to hear that inner dialogue where okay, I shouldn't do this or I should do this, and I know this is better for me, and to listen to that? Why is it so hard sometimes?
Because, man, it's like we live in a world of like immediate negative repercussions. You say one stupid thing on your pod or on a live, or you do some stupid thing and somebody catches it on camera, like your career could be over. I'm fortunate enough to be in a category where I'm not really cancelable anymore, like, because I don't care. I didn't do any brand deals. I don't take any money. Like, I got offered $3 million to do a tweet about a crypto, and I said no. So like, I am not beholden to anybody. And I think that's very liberating and it's freeing. But a lot of people, it's unfortunately, like most people aren't in that spot where they can just be like, this is what I'm doing, and chips are going to fall where they may.
But do you think even if you weren't able to technically be in that spot, do you think being in that spot is how you get to that spot?
Yeah. It's kind of a strange thing. You almost have to let go and just do your thing. And it's crazy. Like, people actually really respond well to that. I didn't realize it until it's one of those things where like you have to leap in order to like realize, and like I just leapt because like I felt like it was right. But the crazy thing is, I thought it was going to be met with a really negative reception, and it was actually met with, not in the beginning, but like later, a more positive reception. But yeah, it's one of those things where you got to jump to know.
It's hard. It's hard to listen to that sometimes.
Well, it's hard because there's so many examples of people that jumped and the water wasn't very deep and they hit the rocks and they're paralyzed now. It's like you jump and you land in the water and it's deep and you come up. He's like, oh, that was easy. Well, it's like, okay, well, it happened to be. But, there's going to be times when you jump and it's not. So, but look, I think when you follow your heart and when you do what you believe in, it, man, like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, you know what I mean? You can't like, and then here's another thing that I realized also too, is that in life, you don't even know what's good or what's bad until way, way, way down the line. So in the moment, you might think something's actually bad for you, but that actually might turn out to be a great thing because it leads to this and this and this. And, you know, so like, you know, the example I use all the time is like, if I would have graduated SEAL training, I probably would have like hung my hat on that and been like, oh, I was a Navy SEAL, like that's enough. People respect that, you know, whatever. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't have achieved as much as I did because I wouldn't have that monkey on my back, you know? So at the time I thought it was the worst possible thing. It turned out to be good. You know, I think there's a lot of times in life where things that you think are good, like a guy wins the lottery, you know, and then he goes broke in 2 years. He's going to be way more miserable 2 years after that, comparing the rest of his life to when he had $100 million. You know, it's like, it's almost always happens.
It's interesting. Obviously not as cool as a Navy SEAL, but I remember when I was in the competition timeline in my life and I was like, this is what I want to do. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I wanted to do like, I was starting to do the men's physique stuff. And I got screwed over in like, cause of the judging, it's like all political. And I remember I didn't get what I wanted, which at the time was a pro card. And then I was like, all right, this industry, I'm only going to focus on like just making content. Cause it was like right around the same time.
Yeah.
And doing that at the time, I remember being like, I felt so like, oh, they me over. I'm getting messages from, this is back in Facebook. People were messaging me on Facebook, like you got robbed. And I felt like so hurt that I didn't get what I was like trying to get for so many years. And then it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings because then I just shifted my focus onto something else that to me didn't feel like it was where I should have been going, but it's what gave me everything else that I have in my life today. Yeah. But focusing on something else. And it's just, it is, life is funny like that, where it is sometimes the things that we think are, you know, not the direction we want to go in, but it's the direction we need to go in. So.
Yeah. And as a control freak, I think the biggest thing that I learned on mushrooms was just like, let go. Cause you have to, you can't control everything. And like when you're shrooming, like if you try and control everything, it's going to freak you out. You have to let go. And so I think that was one of the big lessons that I learned was like, it's okay to let go sometimes. It's okay to like, and honestly, dude, it's only a perception of control. Like you don't actually have control. Like just because you try really hard at something doesn't mean it's going to happen, you know, like, so I think this idea that you can just, you know, control everything, it's just an illusion anyway. So when you take a breath and relax and just say, okay, well, you know, what's going to happen? And I'm not saying like, don't prep and don't, you know, do the work, but I'm just saying, don't get so hung up on, you know, the end result. It's just like, look, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like do the work, put yourself in a good position, but like, don't be so focused on the outcome. And I think by not focusing on the outcome, it's like, you know, the more you build something up, the more nervous you're going to be, the more scared you're going to be. And then the more likely you are to fail. Like so often, like fear is a big governor. So yeah, I would just, you know, the advice I would give to people is just kind of like, let go and just, you know, do what you think is right. And don't worry so much about what happens. Like just take it as it comes, you know, like, cause I tried to control everything, dude. And it made me miserable, honestly.
Yeah. I relate to that so heavy. Well, I appreciate you, brother, man. That was amazing. Yeah. You killed that. I'm glad you got that nap in.
Yeah. I needed that.
If there's anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's it.
That's it, man. Thank you so much. Every Tuesday, I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Classic YouTube sign out. But thank you, brother. Cool. That was awesome.